Hello, and welcome to Atheists Talk. My name is James Zimmerman, and I'm glad that you joined us tonight. We have a special treat. Today we're going to be interviewing a local musician. If you are a regular watcher of the show or a downloader of the podcast, then you probably remember from a few months ago when Eric Jane interviewed a local musician just to get to know someone in our community or a local atheist, just to get to know someone in our community and to see their background. So we thought that would be nice to duplicate that again tonight. So tonight we're going to be talking with Jason Tuthill. We're going to be first talking about his life, his upbringing, how he was raised, and what his views are now on things such as God and spirituality. And then we're going to have a special treat because he's going to actually play one of his songs because he's a local musician who's been in a few different bands and he's released some music. So we're going to get a treat by ending the discussion with a song. So welcome, Jay.
Glad to be here.
Good. So let's just start right off. I said to the listeners that we want to talk about your early upbringing. So you grew up in Minnesota, but you had religious beliefs that were maybe not quite the normal Minnesota Lutheran that people think of. So do you want to give us some background on that?
Yeah, I can give kind of some routines and what it was like for me as a kid. Because as a kid, you always think it's normal because that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
When you start getting older, you start, whether you're being in school or whatnot, you start realizing that, this is a little odd. I am being treated a little differently than other parents to their children. So, my family itself was evangelical free. It's kind of a new up and coming, it's a church that's very big, I think, in the Utah, Indiana, Illinois kind of area. I used to do a lot of research after falling out to kind of just find out, where to come from. But starting it as a kid, from what I really remember, evangelical free church is it's like Lutheranism, Lutheran on steroids.
Oh, yeah, that's a good way to put it. Is that their tagline on their bumper stickers?
It should have been. So, the church, pretty normal. Church on Sunday, it went anywhere from about an hour to 2 hours, and then, of course, there was Sunday school following that. So it could go anywhere from 3 hours to 4 hours. If there was a special occasion, Easter, Christmas, there would be a candle ceremony or whatnot the night before, or on Good Friday, Palm Sunday, etc.
And your parents preferred to school you at home, right? That was
yes,
the major difference.
We were treated a little different growing up. There were I had 3 siblings, so 4 kids, and we were all homeschooled. We really didn't get into public school, as they refer to as the devil's playground.
Sure, yeah.
Public schools were teaching evolution, and that was frowned upon heavily. And yeah, I guess it's one of those things where I thought it was normal.
Yeah. You said that one thing that you noticed looking back on it that was odd about the homeschooling was that scriptures were incorporated into things that maybe didn't even necessarily require it.
You'd be in math class and they'd be talking about Matthew.
Okay.
And it was strange, especially getting into public schools, that Bible verses, things like that, those aren't incorporated in it. And it was daily. It was we had Bible reading almost every night, and if something happened that was good in your life, they'd quote a Bible verse or whatnot, and they were very active in this evangelical free church.
And I think when non-believers or non-religious people think about how often Christians pray, they think, they probably pray before their meals and then at church, and maybe before bed. But you said yours was a little more intense than that, your prayer routine.
Sure. Yes. If we always did before meals, if you couldn't touch your food until you were done holding hands and praying. This could be at McDonald's. So, you're holding hands, and it's very embarrassing. I even remember as a kid, our family holding hands, and, our father wouldn't let us eat until we all did that. And that's the same thing before every meal, before bed. But if something good happened, we'd all hold hands, and we had to pray before we'd open presents for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it was more than normal.
I would start to wonder how powerful my God was if what he supplied to me for food was McDonald's.
Right.
And then also chores, which most parents think are a good thing. Have your kids help around the house. But you said that your family
Yes.
put a special twist on chores.
They did. You're supposed to respect your elders, and you were put more to submission to their authority. You needed to do what they said. My mom schooled us. That's more than a normal mother would do. But besides, baking the food and doing the schooling, we were in charge of everything else. We had to dust, we had to mop, we had to do the dishes, put them away, set the table, among many other things. When we got older, we were doing the laundry as well.
And that was supposed to show like submission to God, or that you were
Respecting our elders.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know now. I
Yeah.
don't know.
And then how about just a quick background on some things are kind of borderline in some Christian religions, such as drinking or dating or certain kind of movies. Did you guys have any restrictions on those?
Sure. Yeah, drinking, absolutely not. Drugs, no. But dating, they wanted us to wait till we were 16. No kissing, nothing like that. Movies was different. If there were a curse word or any naked body part that was private, we couldn't view it. It could be a PG movie and we wouldn't be able to view it. No magic or anything like that.
So when I grew up too, my religion had a funny view towards any sort of magic or fantasy that was in movies, but they weren't consistent about it. Like maybe the Harry Potter movies would be viewed as bad, but The Wizard of Oz was okay, and most Disney classics were okay, like Cinderella, even though those are filled with, what's the word I'm looking for? Fantasy witches and spells. Right. So
and that's funny because yes, we did watch The Wizard of Oz, and they just said it's just a dream.
Okay.
Harry Potter out of the question. No way. Can you? It's magic. It's evil. So yeah, they found ways, and we'll kind of get into more of that later on about if they really thought they couldn't hold something back for us, they would twist it.
Okay.
So.
And then a couple other things I have mentioned here is that you were encouraged to preach to your friends, like when you started going to school or when you were at their homes?
Yes, you were encouraged. You weren't, it wasn't demanded or you need to do it or you're grounded.
Yeah.
But they always said, did you tell him about God? He seems to be struggling in school or whatnot, and he's hanging out with the wrong crowd. You should become friends with them and tell him about God. And, you'd try, but especially if you're not believing in it, okay, I'll do that, Mom,
Yeah.
So.
And then was there Bible camps too?
Yes. I believe it was from first grade to sixth grade. I attended Bible school for 2 weeks every summer. And, there were different relays for good deeds. You go clean the park, or you'd go help go to town because it was out by Lake Mille Lacs in that area.
Oh, okay.
You'd go to, I believe it was a Walker or something, and you'd clean up the city or whatnot, and you'd have to learn scripture, of course. There were a few things as far as activities that were pretty normal as far as swimming. Who can go there and back the quickest, stuff like that. But the main focus was learning scripture and learning more about God and gospel and choir. Yes.
So a lot of things seem pretty typical of Christian denomination, but then some things are kind of extreme.
Yeah.
So what was your view of all of this growing up, especially as you became into your teens and went to public school and started to see people who weren't all the evangelical free?
Well, it would strike me odd. I played sports through homeschool, but my friends would refer my church as a cult. And they always said that, we were extreme, and they always frown upon us hanging out with people that weren't going to our church. And people would kind of be like, oh, he's getting out of the church type thing. And and the other people thought that was so weird because they're like, well, I'm Catholic, he's Lutheran, we're hanging out. That's no big deal.
Yeah.
Lots of little things. I can uniquely remember just fear all the time. You're scared because of the stories they told you. It was severe. You will burn if you don't get your life together.
Oh, because they taught that hell was a literal place that you really could go to.
Yeah.
A lot of Christian religions have gotten away from that in the last half century. But
they've morphed or whatnot.
Yeah.
But yes, they said you will spend eternity down there burning if you don't. For instance, listen to your parents.
Yeah, well, that'd be a good motivator to dust, I suppose.
And I did it.
Yeah. So did you ever get whatever your religion's version of it was, like baptized or confirmed in the faith?
Yes, also something that was different. We weren't baptized as kids, but rather it was up to us as a young adult. When we said it was a good choice, we would go do it ourselves.
Okay, yeah.
And confirmation, we did do it, but they called it something different.
Okay.
I can't for the life of me remember.
It's going to bother you now all day.
Yeah, it will. But we did the classes. It was every Wednesday night for, from 6th grade, I think, all the way till 9th. So every Wednesday night.
Okay, that was part of the training to lead up to confirmation?
That was your training. So.
And then this might kind of tread over some of what we said about preaching to your friends, but you did some, even when you were a teenager, you did some involvement with the church of your own accord just because you wanted to please everyone and you thought it was the right thing to do.
Yes.
So there were certain church services in Awana. Did you want to talk about that for a couple?
Yeah, there were, I was in choir as a young adult. I started falling off, when I hit that 6th grade middle school, from 6th grade to 8th grade is what our middle school was. That's when I started getting a little eerie and things just didn't seem right. And not to say that other religions seemed great, but I started to drift, and I can't think of the exact moments, but
the exact time when you first started having doubts.
Right, no.
Well, what were your major doubts? Were you thinking hell can't be real, or the Bible doesn't seem like it's really...
I was a freak about dinosaurs as a kid. And I always like to tell people that, because when I finally was getting older, I'm like, man, I used to be a big fan of dinosaurs, and this religion says they're not real. Well, I had, and I don't know if we sat down with the youth pastor or whatnot with my parents, and they said that the dinosaurs died because they couldn't fit on the ark, so they drowned.
Oh, okay.
And I thought, that's bogus, but so that was one thing. I'm like, you can't just, these bones just can't be here for a reason. Oh, God's testing us is another thing I'd hear. Big doubt of mine, even as a little kid.
Yeah, that he planted evidence to
disprove
challenge faith. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So did you kind of keep those doubts secret, or did you tell them to your parents? It sounds like you had a conversation with the pastor one time.
Yeah, when I was younger, I used to outwardly talk about it, but when I got older, I hid it.
Yeah.
Because it's one of those things where you're trying to keep your parents happy, and the fear thing. So
you kind of secretly dispensed or disrespected the faith.
Sure.
I guess you could say, but
Yep.
you kept it inside because you were still living at home, right?
Yep.
Oh, and you also mentioned a couple Bible stories when we were talking about this before that you said they didn't sound too loving to you. You gave an example of Job and Abraham.
Oh, yes. This would happen. I actually was in my late teens, probably 18, 19, and they were talking about how great God was and what great He's done in my life, and I just kind of said, that's enough. We were at church the morning. It was Sunday, I believe. We were having game night, and I said, that's enough. The whole Job story is awful. The fact that his wife and kids were expendable, and so was his house and everything that he worked for, just for God to prove that, this guy.
Yeah, just to prove a point.
Yeah. This guy is on my side. You can do whatever you want to him. He's not going to break. And I thought that that's awful. Even if it is real, I don't want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So it was really traumatic. I got into it with my parents, and we've been tough ever since. So.
Yeah, that segues nicely into what I was going to say now, because now you're an adult.
Yeah.
You're all grown up.
Yep.
So in post-secondary schooling and once you left the house, you were more open and more willing to talk about the fact that you didn't believe in the Bible and the evangelical free worldview anymore.
I did more of I wasn't tied to anything, and I did more of my research. I took philosophy of religion, I took Catholicism, and I took many other classes to just check and see how things are being done. And the similarity between all of them was incredible to me. I thought, they're all doing the same thing, whether it be the birth of their Lord, their Savior, etc. They didn't, the Hinduism, Buddhism, I went into it, and I thought something's going to snap, and I'd be like, that makes sense. It didn't happen.
So there was never a time when you thought, you never went from being evangelical free to being another religion, is what I'm saying.
No,
Because
no.
you couldn't, you left it and then couldn't find anything where
I
the
left,
logic
and
would fit.
I'm still here.
Yeah. So you haven't gone to hell yet. That's good.
No, yeah.
That's good, because then we can
Right.
have you on the show here. So what's your relationship with the rest of your family? I mean, you know that your parents were into it.
Yeah.
And then, but you also mentioned you have 3 other siblings. So what's the relationship like with all of you guys now?
The part where I said, that I kept in secret my disrespect for it, my brother was an actor, because he was a mute at home, and he got best sense of humor in high school like I did. Yeah. And I thought, how is that possible? But I knew a little side he'd open up to me. Mm-hmm. My sisters are still really into the religion to this day, as are my parents, but my little brother moved away as I did, and he faked it all the way up to graduation.
Oh, wow. So do you have much contact with your brother then, or with your sisters?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. I was up. I saw my family. It had been about 3 or 4 years, and we got together, and it was awkward.
Yeah.
the praying and the constant talk about it, and my parents know. They know what I am, and they know that I'm not a part, and we have a mutual respect. So.
Is their view kind of that you're a lost sheep, and if they just can pray when you're near them, and if you get to see what good Christians they are, that maybe they'll win you back eventually, or?
Sure, because what they used to do too is they'd call me and do a verse with me over the phone, or send me care packages and with Bible verses in them, and they'd even give Christian books to my children, and I ended up saying something that I was just like, yeah, I finally just said, that's great, but I don't want that, and since then, yeah, it's been a little more hazy than it used to be, because they were maybe trying to be like, oh, he's just lost, we'll get him back, but I think they realize now that I'm not part of the herd.
Yeah,
So.
I think that might be a common thing, because when I left my religion too, my family a lot were viewing me as like maybe going through a rebellious stage,
Sure.
or just having some troubles,
Right.
especially because I had a young baby at home. They're like, oh, he's too distracted with the stuff that happens the first year of a baby's life and
Yep.
everything. And so, but I think as time goes on, they start to realize, oh, it doesn't seem like he's coming back, so
Yeah, it's getting
we better
worse.
just live and let live, or it's just going to be really
Right.
awkward for the rest of time. But then an interesting thing you said to me when we talked about this was that you still have a respect for them, because you kind of view it as they're brainwashed and they want to keep doing what they're doing. So
To
it's not
some
like you.
extent, that's what it is. There's a respect. I mean, I know in their heart they meant right.
Yeah.
They were just trying to make us good people and keep us away from evil stuff and keeping us our morals good. The main thing is change is tough on people. Even if they were to find something, and they're in their 50s, they've been doing it for 50 years. I mean, there's not going to be one thing that's going to change their mind and change itself by doing it that long. I just feel sorry for them.
Yeah, I think if someone has been, like if they're so immersed in a religion, not just the casual, every Sunday they go
Right.
and that's it, but I think if they're so immersed in it where all their friends are that way and they
Yep.
have purposely secluded themselves from people who are not a religion, it's almost hard to think of what they would do if they were to leave
right.
it now. I'm not talking about a young kid when they finally graduate high school, but I mean someone who's in their 50s or older, like what would they do now after they've built up that whole life? But okay, so with our remaining time though, you've been able to successfully channel
Yes.
some of your feelings about the religion and some of your atheism now into an artistic endeavor, and that is music.
Absolutely, yep.
Do you want to talk about how that's been an outlet for you?
Yeah, when I was, I can just give you kind of a brief breakdown of how I got into music. I was always a big fan of it. Nobody was really musical in my family. My sister might have played violin for a couple of years, and I was on the piano just trying to learn. And I stumbled into it, and I never took any lessons or anything, but I found out that I had a good voice and that I enjoyed playing the guitar. This led into me doing just hobby stuff. Somebody heard it one day, me doing hobbies, just playing at a bar or grill or something, and they wanted to sign me to a record deal for my voice. And this is 3-4 years ago. That even talk, I came down to the Twin Cities here to get more music in.
Right.
And it's really let me channel and write, because I'm very artistic with my writing. There's always a message slightly hidden, but I've done a lot of religion, politics, and just overall the same old sex and stuff. So.
Yeah. It seems like with artists of all stripes, painters and authors and stuff, they sometimes have more to say or different ways to express themselves if they've had a more unusual upbringing.
Yeah, and that may be why I have more to say. So.
Yeah, and definitely a unique perspective or a new way of looking at things. So you mentioned that you've moved down to the Twin Cities, which is why you're here in Minneapolis now.
Yes.
So you want to tell us some of the local gigs or CDs that you've put out in the last 4 years?
Yes, when I first moved down here, I was encouraged by a friend of mine to come down here because the record deal that I was going into was actually in Winnipeg, Manitoba in Canada.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, I was only living in Thief River Falls, Minnesota, an hour from the border. It wasn't that big of a change for me, but he said, the music scene is going to be better here. It's just better in the United States. He convinced me. I came down here, and it is a good music scene here.
Yeah, I think so too.
The bands, I started off right away doing kind of a Beatlesque type sound. We were the Food Stamps. We put out a CD, and we won a Battle of Bands at The Rock, which is now, I believe, the Bulldog over in Maplewood.
I don't know.
And yeah, it fell apart because the backup singer and I was a lead singer and I had a backup singer who was on keys. We went our separate ways. He liked that style. I wanted to move into something that would resemble more of like a Nirvana, some grunge stuff. And as far as CDs since then, I've had multiple discs of live shows and things like that. But at this point, I'm in the studio getting ready to put out an album that I'm proud of, that I've been working on for years now.
All right, and you're going to give us a sneak peek then?
Yes, I will.
So you mentioned you had a good voice, so if you have some water, you can maybe recover, and then we will listen to a song, if you're willing to do that now with our remaining few minutes. Okay, well, so Jason is going to go over to his guitar and sit on his musician stool so he can be all artistic. And the name of the song is titled, Why Do You Play God? It's going to be a relatively unplugged version here without a backup band or percussion, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I guess whenever you're ready, you can just go ahead.
Yeah, so like James said, this is an acoustic version. Obviously, I don't have the full band in front of me, the electric guitar, but hopefully you'll enjoy it.
By day, whether it's the dead of night, but I confide in you in everything you do. Who's to say who is right? You seem to notice everything. Why don't you play God? I don't think you notice. Color around my life, you seem to notice everything. Why don't you play God? I don't think you notice, I'm not listening. Still, why you playing God? I don't think you notice I'm not listening. Still, why you playing God? I'm gonna show off you, show the world it's true, show 'em that you're a fraud. And why do you play God? Thanks. Sure.
Some dancing behind the scenes with
Oh, okay,
some of our camera people. So thank you. That was Why Do You Play God?
Yep.
And do you want to? Do you have any? What am I looking for? Any gigs lined up or any way that we can find out more about the music?
Yeah, the website that I currently have that we're putting together, it may be under construction as of right now, but
Okay.
it's our band name is VIA, VIA.
Okay.
And it's viaroll.com.
Okay.
And right now, the plan is we're going to be in the studio here until close to the end of the year. And on 12/20/12,
Which is the day before the Earth ends.
Right. It'll be the night before the world ends. And I
Okay,
figured
yeah.
it's a good way to go out.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to be releasing the CD and putting our show together. And then from
okay.
there on, we'll play. You know, I used to gig a lot where it was, you know, a couple times a month. It'll be, you know, once every other month. It'll
Okay,
be a
yeah,
big
you'll
deal.
have to keep Minnesota Atheists in the loop then, because we could have that be a meetup or put it in the newsletter
Absolutely.
so that people can find out and support you and,
Yeah.
you know, do whatever they do for music.
Sure.
So, okay, so that song was Why Do You Play God, and your band is Via, and you're planning for a gig on 12/20. More information will be forthcoming, but they can find out at the websites that are available. All right, thank you so much for joining us, Jay.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for watching our show. If you'd like to contact us at the address that we're showing on the screen, we will send you the latest copy of our newsletter so you can find out more about us and some of the activities, such as concerts that we might set up. If you have any topics that you'd like to hear discussed here on Atheist Talk, or if you'd like to be a part of Atheist Talk, go ahead and give us a call, because if you're interested in us, we're interested in you. Thank you.